The Bicycle Frame Builder's Apprentice, Chapter 12. Any motorist travelling up the A6 south of Manchester early on Saturday morning, the 11th of April 1992, who happened to come across a tandem from the rear could be forgiven for thinking they stumbled upon a pair of impoverished gypsies who'd had their caravan and lorry taken off them by creditors. Hanging from its overfilled rear panniers was what, at first glance, could have been taken for a heap of scrap metal. It comprised an assorted collection of aluminium cooking implements and eating utensils, including a good-sized frying pan, a mess tin, 2 enamel mugs, a medium-sized kettle, complete with whistle, and a zig bottle of paraffin, the latter 2 items swinging on the bike's offside, as if deliberately positioned to scratch or dent any passing car that got too close. Malc and Tom were back on the road again, doing what they did best and enjoyed most, much to the disgust of a few ill-tempered and frustrated motorists, and to the amusement of others. Both were in high spirits. They always were whenever they set out on a camping expedition, but this particular day had added spice for both of them. Tom was looking forward to spending the next week with his old friend, Rosie Ackroyd, and his new friends, Connie Gartside and Mikey Grimsditch. Malc was looking forward to enjoying a break from toil in pleasant surroundings and in good company, with plenty of fresh air and fun thrown in for good measure. They'd just completed the long steady climb up the A6 that begins shortly after the rising sun in Hazel Grove on the outskirts of Stockport, and ends just after the border of the villages of High Lane and Disley. Once on the flat, they'd soon built up speed, and were now travelling at a good 22 miles an hour as they swept around the long left-hand curve, past the impressive gates at the entrance to Lime Park on their right. From there, the gently undulating road would take them through Disley village centre into open country, above and alongside the wide-open valley of the River Goyt, before turning off to descend into New Mills. Then they would head up the valley of the River Set into Hayfield. Here they would take a break, enjoy a welcome cup of tea at the Three Trees Cafe, purchase some food, and then continue to their ultimate destination, Gartside's farm. Connie and Rosie were also heading for Hayfield on their bikes, having been dispatched by Elsie on a food shopping expedition to the local bakery and the co-op. However, having passed the sportsman at great speed, they were soon applying their brakes. Mikey and his mother were standing outside their cottage, admiring a bike, along with a near neighbour. The girls were soon over the road. Mikey smiled a greeting. "Mr. Hodgson's offered to lend Mammy's bike," he told them. "It's a real smasher." Pearl turned at the sound of her son's voice. "Hiya, you two. You've turned up just in time, young Connie. You might be able to help." "Help? What kind of help?" "A broken spoke," Mr. Hodgson explained, "in the back wheel." "This side, is it?" Connie asked. Mr. Hodgson looked surprised. "Yes, but how did you guess?" "It usually is," she said, with all the authority of an expert. "The spokes on the dish side are under the greatest tension. I bet it's a pulling spoke as well." Mr. Hodgson laughed. "I never checked, but look for yourself." Connie squatted down to inspect the offending spoke, and discovered she'd been right. "Can you fix it?" Pearl wanted to know. "As long as I've got the right length of spokes. It's a 27-inch wheel, which is now old technology, but I'm sure we'll be all right. Malc gave me a good selection. If not, I can cycle into New Mills. There's a good bike shop there. I'll take the bike up to the farm when we've finished Mum's shopping." "I could pick some spokes up in the car," the bike's owner offered. "I'm sure I'll have some, Mr. Hodgson, but can we phone you if I haven't?" "Pearl's got my number. Phone any time." Pearl smiled. "Thanks, George. You're a real pal." "Don't thank me, Pearl. You've been a good neighbour to me for many a year. It's my pleasure." "This is quite a bike, Mr. Hodgson," Connie interjected. "It's a curly etching, isn't it? How long have you had it?" Longer than I care to remember, lass. I used to be quite a cyclist in me time." He looked at her once more. She was nowt but a youngster, and a farmer's daughter at that. He wondered where she'd heard about etching from, and how she came to be so knowledgeable about wheel building, but didn't ask. Instead he said, "I'll tell you what, Pearl, I'll run the bike up to th' farm." He turned to Connie. "You're Jed Gartside's lass, aren't they?" "Yes, I'm Connie." "Right, Connie, I'll get it there, and if you need spokes or owt else for it, just let me know. Pearl tells me you're all cycling to Othersish tomorrow. She might as well have a decent bike in good order while she's at it." Eventually the two girls set off, this time with Mikey, who hadn't wasted any time extracting his own bike from its cubbyhole under the stairs. George and Pearl watched them as they speeded down the lane. At last George broke the silence. "Isn't that the lass who lost her leg some years back?" "Yes, George, it was a terrible accident. They amputated just below the knee." "Aye, but look at the way she rides. She's a natural. You wouldn't think there was aught wrong with her leg, would they?" Pearl smiled. "She's a wonderful young girl. She don't let anything get her down. Our Mikey thinks the world of her. She passed me on the lane the other day. She were accelerating uphill as if she were descending. She'd be good at racing, I reckon." Pearl chuckled, not least because she knew George had been quite a time trialist and hill-climb champion in his day. Connie's not backward when it comes to competition. She'll take on all comers given half the chance. Although her adult admirers didn't necessarily understand why, Connie had made a great discovery. She was in her true element on a bike. While she was an intrepid walker and a good runner, cycling was a great joy to her. She, in common with all those who had discovered the bike as a means of transport and pleasure, enjoyed the speed and ease of travel, the wind in her hair, and the fresh air on her face. However, for Connie in particular, cycling had an additional benefit. No matter how fit the individual, walking, let alone running, consumes considerably more energy using an artificial limb than is the case for an able-bodied person with two good legs. When cycling, she soon realized this particular effect was minimized to a great degree. The main reason being that the bike carries the rider's weight, leaving the legs free to power the machine through the pedals and drive chain. Moreover, because the pedaling motion is rotary, the strain on muscles and joints is far less than when walking or running. Luckily, the hip and knee joints of her right leg, along with the upper muscles, had not suffered as a result of the accident. Thus, despite the fact her lower limb and foot were artificial, she was still able to deliver almost as much power to the right-hand pedal as to the left. It had taken her years of hard graft and determination to learn to walk and run sufficiently fast to keep up with her contemporaries. In contrast, once she'd mastered the art of riding a bike, the rest was an easy matter. The energy deficit resulting from any slight loss of natural pedaling power was easily overcome by her highly honed competitive nature, and that was more than sufficient to give her the edge she needed. If she came across any cyclists on her travels, her instinct was to overtake them, and if she was overtaken in turn, a chase was guaranteed. As a result of the latter circumstance, she soon learnt the advantage of getting as close as possible to the leading rider's back wheel. That way, she remained protected from the cyclist's biggest enemy, namely air resistance, particularly when faced with a headwind. As a result, she found herself resting while speeding along in the other's wake. Then, when a suitable occasion arose, particularly a hill climb, she'd nip around her erstwhile and often unsuspected human windbreak and shoot uphill with muscles nicely refreshed and reoxygenated, taking the person she'd slipstreamed so quietly behind by surprise. Few caught the youngster, no matter how hard they tried, for as well as being determined, she was small and light, a winning combination when faced with a climb. Moreover, the Peak District of Derbyshire is not an area bereft of good climbs, and to a girl with Connie's temperament, the steepest specimens acted as a magnet. The next time she cycled up the infamous Winnett's Pass, which climbs a total of 188 metres in a distance of 1.64 kilometres, that is exactly 1 mile, with a leg-breaking 20% incline in parts, won't be the first nor the last. There they are. Quick, Mikey, shout them over. Connie, Rosie and Mikey occupied their favourite table in their favourite cafe, and they just spotted Tom and his dad. However, it proved unnecessary for the young lad to leave his seat. The two had disembarked from the tandem by the church and were wheeling it across the road towards them, their smiles showing they'd spotted the youngsters. Within moments the tandem nestled alongside their 3 bikes, and Tom had taken his place at the table with them, leaving his father to find a seat at the next. After saying aye to the young lad, Connie immediately rose from her seat, eager to talk to her elder mentor, who, after his initial greeting, was now perusing the menu. "How are things, Malc?" Connie asked. He looked up and smiled. "Fine, we've had a good journey. How's tricks with you?" "Good, but I might need your help." He looked across the table in anticipation. "I've a wheel to repair when I get back to the farm. It's a simple job if I've got the right length spoke, but I've realised I'm going to have to remove the block. I think it's a Maillard 6-speed, but I'm not sure. The thing is, the last time I tried to remove a block, I had a real struggle, it was on so tight. And this is a very old bike." "Did you put the block remover in the vise before turning the wheel and using the rim as a lever?" "Yes, and I kept the tyre on to ensure maximum grip, but I couldn't do it on my own. Luckily, Ralph was about, and he's ever so strong." "Well, being a little bloke, I'm not that strong either, but I'm sure we'll manage between us." "It's a Hetchin," Connie added. "Curly or straight?" "Curly, and it's got the Tottenham head badge, not Southend." Malc shook his head and smiled. "You've been doing your own work since I saw you last." "There are some interesting books in the local library, and I get cycling weekly from our newsagent." "But do you do any cycling? That's what's most important." "Of course I do. I use the bike every day, and now the nights allied to most evenings too. It's really wonderful, Malc. I'll never be able to thank you enough, and we've fixed Rosie up with a bike." "You don't have to thank me, young Connie. All you have to do is build wheels for me for the rest of your sweet life." At that point the waitress approached and asked if he'd like to order. Connie wondered if he could possibly be serious with regard to wheel building, but not for too